G'day mates, Jackaroo Turo here. And on this channel I focus on Australian Aboriginal languages, cultures, Australian Aboriginal history, and so on. And this video is part of a series where I look at verbs in Australian Aboriginal languages, predominantly at verbs in Pama-Nyungan languages, the big Australian language family. And in the last video I started to look at TAM marking, tense, aspect and mood marking. So let's recapitulate a little bit what this is, shall we? Tense markers locate events in time in relation to some other point in time, most frequently the speech situation. Aspect marking and aspect has been described as different ways of viewing the internal temporal constituency of a situation. And then we have mood, markers of the status of a proposition. Yes, so here we have tense, aspect and mood markers from 4 different languages in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, a part of Australia where the languages, as you can see, have big sets of tense, aspect and mood markers. There are many different categories. Some categories are shared between all 4 languages. Here, some categories are shared between the 2 languages that are close to each other. So here we have Ngara and Nyamal from the northernmost part of the Pilbara region. They are clearly closely related. They come from one and the same parent language. From a bit further south we have Panjima and Marudonera, the last language name of which I find very difficult to say. It's a tongue twister. They were not neighboring. Injibarndi Kurama came in between them. But they both belong to the small group of languages found in a contiguous area in this part of Australia that have developed consistent nominative accusative case marking on nouns and nominals. And in such languages you usually find passives on the verbs. In languages that have nominative accusative case marking or that have had such case marking. Languages like English and Swedish may be mentioned in this context as well as languages that have passives and that have had case marking following the nominative accusative pattern. Yes, so we have lots of different categories. In some cases, as I said, all 4 languages share a category, like present tense and past tense combined with perfective aspect. When it comes to past tense combined with imperfective aspect, only 3 languages actually have this category. Think pretérito indefinido and pretérito imperfecto in Spanish, those who have studied that language. Yes, so here Ngara and Nyamal have the usative category, as Professor Alan Dench chose to call it. This is past tense combined with a habitual aspect. And as I said in the previous video, in languages in general, tense markers, or TAM markers I should say, often combine tense and aspect, tense information and aspectual information. That is what we have here. In these two languages, they instead have a tense-independent habitual category, so that's purely aspectual. By the way, one more thing I should mention about these languages is that 3 of them have 2 verbal conjugations following dench called the 0 and L conjugation. This one, like Injibarndi Kurama, the language that comes in between these two, this one has 3 verbal conjugations: 0, L, and R. Yes, so in this part of Australia, languages have developed many TAM categories. And there are TAM categories here, which only one language has. So Ngara is the only language to have a remote past tense used, according to my consultant, for events that took place a few years ago and further back in time than that. Nyamal is the only language to have a prospective, where the event is seen as an undifferentiated whole, as in a perfect. But according to Dench, who has worked on Nyamal, this is the mirror image of a perfect, because when using the perspective, the speaker places himself or herself in a point in time before the event that is seen as an undifferentiated whole. Speaking of perfect, both these languages have a passive perfect, where it is implied that the event described cannot be changed. It is finished, cannot be changed. Panjima has a category which Dench calls the might passive. It's the passive equivalent of the speculative, used in main clauses in this language. The speculative, where the speaker speculates about what might happen, what may happen. Mardudonera has also developed a passive contrafactual or counterfactual. These two languages have a counterfactual here, used in non-passive clauses. Ngara and Nyamal have a present contrafactual or counterfactual. But actually, out of these 4 languages, only Ngara also have a past contrafactual category. And these are all used, these contrafactuals, when the verb is negated. One thing we can find here that you can see for yourselves is one thing that is very common in Australia. As I said in the previous video, there are a few TAM categories that we find in many Pama-Nyungan languages in different parts of the continent, and that are marked with the same or similar endings or suffixes. But there is a bewildering array of suffixes here. So frequently, when languages have the same TAM categories. They use different suffixes, endings, to mark them. Let's look at a few exceptions. We have the past tense here in Panjima and Mardodonera, which are marked by the same suffixes in the two conjugations they share. We have the optative in Ngara and Nyamal, which is a modal marker, not used very frequently, but when used it expresses that the speaker thinks that whatever is expressed by the verb should be allowed to take place or to continue. Here, these are clearly the same suffixes, save for the last vowel, which has changed in one of the languages. And I would also like to point out the purposive, which is one of those common categories found in Pama-Nyungan languages. Here in Nyamal, Yarara and Ladara are used in both main and dependent clauses. In Ngara, you find Kura and Lu that are used in main clauses, but in dependent clauses they use Yarara, identical to this one, and Lyadara, almost identical to that one. Yes, note also that Ngara belongs among the handful of Pama-Nyungan languages spread out in different parts of Australia, where the same suffixes, endings, are used both to mark future tense and imperative mood. So to talk about the future and to give orders. This stands for 0 in linguistics, which means that there is no ending used in this conjugation. Instead, when you have a bare verb stem, it's interpreted to express either future tense or imperative mood. Yes, but a bewildering array of different TAM categories and a bewildering array of different suffixes, endings, marking them. This will be all for today, but as you know I will be back, so see you later.